When a person goes missing and a body has been found, forensic experts begin the painstaking process to identify the remains. Jennifer Shin, a retired crime laboratory director of the San Diego Police Department, exclusively tells the U.S. Sun that she has seen it all during a 32-year career, having worked on thousands of cases. She expertly explained to the U.S. Sun earlier in the week that investigators in Oklahoma had to take time to confirm the remains of a child they found belonged to Athena Brownfield, who was allegedly murdered on Christmas Day 2022 because they had to be 100% sure, to avoid making a horrifying mistake. And now, Shin can reveal the strict methodology behind the processes and why everything must be done by the book to ensure the correct outcome is delivered. So, the thing about the recovering of a body, there are two parts to it that are really important, Shin told the U.S. Sun. The first part is the actual recovery of the body needs to be done really well, very carefully, and bearing in mind the fact that you're trying to not only retrieve the body, but anything around the body, or within the gravesite that might help the investigators determine the cause of death and to determine who may have put her in the grave. Just because a body has been found, it never means the job is complete. In fact, it's only just begun. It's a very lengthy process of actually doing the excavation, she said. You would be surprised how often when someone buried the body, they bury a bunch of stuff in there that they don't want anymore, like weapons, belongings that they love could be thrown into that grave as well. There could be a number of people at a crime scene, homicide detectives, someone who is trained in recovering evidence, and a crime scene specialist who would take photographs, collect evidence, and transport it for examination. The forensic scientist, meanwhile, will do a reconstruction of the scene, look at the evidence, and try to understand exactly what happened. You have to make sure that you get everything out of the various sites in a very systematic way, said Shin, so that you have the evidence you need to go forward with an investigation. And sometimes, it's helpful when you're trying to determine the cause of death. If someone's been shot, you could find the metal bullet if the cartridge case is in the grave. Once everybody feels they have all the information needed without disturbing the body, a medical examiner will be called to collect and remove the body. When that is done, that often opens up other areas, which need to be photographed, and more evidence can be collected, said Shin. With the body excavated safely, the medical examiners then get to work. The second part is identifying the body, she continued. And there are a lot of ways to do that just in general. Certainly looking at the physical characteristics is one way, if the body is not too decomposed. If she was wrapped up and isolated, like for instance the body was wrapped in plastic and put into a grave and it's very cold weather, the decomposition process could be slower. There's a natural decomposition process, but sometimes, it's someone who's very out in the open somewhere and it's the animal and bug activity, which caused some real difficulties or identification. In the case involving Athena Brownfield, because I assumed that it was pretty cold in the middle of winter, I imagine the decomposition level isn't that high. But what if the face on the body was totally unrecognizable? Traditionally, we would look at physical characteristics, she said. The dental records are a big one. If you have a person who regularly attended dental appointments, who has records on file, that's a very traditional way of identifying. If you don't have that, certainly, you're looking at the medical records to see if there's anything unusual about that person that you might be able to see in the body. Look for interesting signs like birthmarks that are very, very unique, but certainly jewelry or clothing. If all of that is not an option, then you're looking for fingerprints and DNA. If the body is not too decomposed, you can take fingerprints from the body and then use those to identify the person, and that's done all the time. The pressure, especially in high-profile cases that get national or even global attention, is exceedingly high, with worried family members and friends desperate for answers. Shin said people in her former position and their teams, however, must remain calm and methodically go through the processes. Someone would be sent to the medical examiner's office to bring evidence to crime lab personnel: hair samples, saliva, photographs of limbs, scrapings from under fingernails, and potentially a sexual assault kit if needed. Anything else that could be used in the investigation would be delivered back to Shen and her colleagues. A technician will go to the autopsy, get fingerprints from our victim, and then read those in the system to see if they can figure it out. And if that is not going to work, then you're going to look for DNA, said the San Diego-based expert. A body that's a couple of weeks old, probably, you can maybe use traditional methods looking at blood, looking at bone marrow, hair samples, DNA that's not traditionally seen at a crime scene. And then by developing a DNA profile, you can compare that DNA to something from that victim's world, a favorite hairbrush, toothbrush for example, something that would have DNA on it. We had a very notorious case in San Diego many years ago. We found our child's body 3 months afterwards, and she wore a very, very distinctive necklace and choker that she never took off. It was in her pictures everywhere. So, when we found the body and the body had the choker on her neck, it was clear that's who that was. Everyone knows what she looked like. The body found is about the right age, she has blonde hair, you can't recognize the features, but she was wearing the same necklace, so maybe your automatic assumption is, which is largely correct, that this is the child you're looking for. But you have to be more concrete than that. You have to do the work to back up your assumptions. It takes a little while and it is frustrating that they have to do all the actual work to prove what they know. It's a choreographed process.